And what they did is indict, though we never saw the indictment, never heard about it, that they voted that day to indict. The governor of New York at that time was Mario Cuomo, and all these people from the Department of Labor right down the line for systematically eliminating the veterans of the state of New York and for crimes against humanity. Now, why those two things? We learn from history. History repeats itself. We're talking about branding human beings with a number to systematically eliminate them. Where did we hear that before?
Nazi
That
Germany.
was in a place called Nazi Germany when they tattooed a number on somebody. But guess what? This is the computer age, folks. You don't need a tattoo artist.
Right.
All you have to do is give them a social security number, and right next to it you stick one of these code numbers, and goodbye. That's it. Show's over. So
they wash their hands of it. Nobody needs to be guilty. It's just
right.
It's will-o'-the-wisp in the computer.
You got it. It's gone. It's out there in an electronic land.
Pandora's box. The flies have left Pandora's box.
That's right. The Pandora's box has been opened. But legally, under the law, we have something called the Constitution of the United States, which says we're entitled to due process of law. And if all these guys given these secret numbers were never given their due process of law, somebody is responsible. And somebody should be paying for this great injustice.
Section 3, we're going to concentrate. How do we solve this? Who's responsible? And who's going to pay for this? And we're going to talk about the judicial system. We're going to talk about Congress. We're going to talk about the judges. We're going to talk about all the attorneys in the bar associations, because you went all across the country and approached the bar associations on a state-by-state-by-state basis. Ed Crosby, the saga continues with a systematic fraud against veterans here in this country. Thank you, along with Dr. Warren. We're back. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is our third show covering the saga of Edwin Crosby III from Albion, New York, a gentleman who many, many years ago discovered quite by accident a systemic, computerized, almost like a cancerous internal virus inside the veterans system that is systematically depriving veterans of their benefits, of even jobs. It has wreaked havoc on the lives of millions of veterans. As we all know, Vietnam veterans have ranked very high nationally on abuse of drugs, being homeless, being poor, on and on down the line. And we're finding with Ed's research, he has uncovered, not just like opening Pandora's box, but he has actually searched in research over the last 20, 30 years and pretty much documented all the flies that left Pandora's box. So fortunately, we have people like Ed who are very, very diligent in how they approach due process from their perspective. Because, Ed, thanks for coming back for our third segment. You have been guided for 25, 30 years, all the way back to 1974. This is 33 years. What keeps you going here? You aren't doing this for yourself. You're doing this for other veterans. You're doing this for what it means to be an American. You fought in Vietnam so that we could have due process here at home, so we could have a judicial system that does operate according to the rule of law. And you have been denied systematically due process. You have a mountain of evidence. Many top senators and congressmen are aware of this. We've gotten calls from around the country that veterans have done their own research. Here in Illinois, Illinois ranked dead last in terms of veteran benefits. We're here with our guest co-host, Dr. Lee Warren. We've sat here, Lee, for the last hour and a half. And I'd like to lead off with a feather in Ed Crosby's hat. You reached all the way to the Supreme Court. And only 393 of these orders were passed out by the Supreme Court in the first 191 years of our country's history, going back to 1789 with the ratification of the Constitution. Tell me how special this court order from the Supreme Court is and what it meant to your mentor, your judge friend in New York.
Back when our case was supposed to go to the Supreme Court, I received a letter at 1 o'clock in the afternoon from the court clerk of the Supreme Court of the United States saying I had till 4 o'clock that afternoon to get the documents down there or this case is out, kit and caboodle, boom, gone. And I called up and I said, that's rather unfair. It's now 1:30. How can I get to Washington, D.C., let alone draw up something and get it down there by 4 o'clock? That's wrong. So I was advised to submit some sort of motion down to Justice Thurgood Marshall, whose signature is on this document, and see if that they would agree and give us an additional amount of time. And a couple weeks later, back came
this. This is before faxes. How did you get this in before 4 o'clock that day?
Well, I certainly couldn't. They told me to submit it, that he would make a note and say, I'm looking for it.
Okay, got it.
They did give us a few days to get the letter down there, so we completed it that day, got a request down to them. And when this came back, I was rather shocked. When I opened it up, this particular, as you see it now, it's in black and white form, but this paper is actually on a blue piece of manila thing, kind of fancy, and folded up in thirds. And I opened it up, and I go, United States order. And I looked at it, and I showed my attorney, and these attorneys at the legal services, they kind of got all excited like little kids in a candy store, and I couldn't quite understand this because I'm a soldier. This is something lawyers really gravitate to, and I took it and went over and showed my mentor, the Chief Judge of Syracuse, and he jumped right up behind his desk and got really excited and took off out the door with it and ran into the other judges' chambers there, and he was showing them, look at this, look at my student. He's got a special order from the Supreme Court, and he was really delighted to see that something like this, and I didn't understand till he came back in. He said, do you know what this means? This is the 393rd special order the court has issued. That isn't from this year. He said, that's from the beginning. And I go, oh, now it gravitated to me. I now understood that I was in pretty good company, that Justice Thurgood Marshall believed we should have the opportunity to get our argument down to him so we could still try to get this case heard. And but we didn't. And then we progress here to 1986. After my appearance before the federal grand jury, I waited, nothing happened. So I filed all the paperwork again and asked the court to reopen it for this court case for fraud upon the court, which is a very most serious crime. That means you've lied to a judge, that you're affecting the judge's decision. And all I got out of that was this particular document here in front of me, which is a second federal court order. And this is signed from the U.S. District Court in the Northern District of New York. out of Syracuse, and it's signed by a Howard G. Munson. So here is a second federal court order, and I'd like to tell you folks out there that these federal court orders are about worth as much as a roll of Scott toilet paper. These things mean nothing. If
before or after?
Yeah, before or after. If a federal judge issues a court order, that should be it, pow. But it's not. And if someone doesn't obey the order, then they should be arrested for failing to obey the court order. But nothing gets done. So now we went from 1986 all the way to 2001. And I have the patience to not give up. And I just hung in there because I believe in liberty and justice for all. Was what those words are the end of the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.